ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। 20 सत्ता चित्तिः सुखं चेति सत्ताश्चित्तिः सुखं चेति स्वभावा ब्रह्मणस्त्रयः मृच्छिलादिषु सत्तैव मृच्छिलादिषु सत्तैव व्यज्यते नेतरद्वयम्। This we have kind of seen earlier when we saw the nature of Brahman, which was described as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. And we also saw that even though that same Brahman is present in everything, in those that do not have a subtle body, only the Sat aspect is manifest. Not that Brahman has aspects. The Sat nature is manifest. Sat simply means is. And so there is only one source of existence. We don't posit that there are many sources of existence. There is only one source of existence, and that is Brahman. And that is Atma, really. There is no other source of existence at all. So in this one source of existence, so all the ises belong to Brahman. Yesterday we saw Asti Bhati Priyam. Asti is the Chit, Sat aspect of Brahman is called Asti, to be, that which is. So Asti, each thing has 5 components. We saw that. Asti Bhati Priyam, and then what else? Nama Rupa. Rupa Nama. Adyadvayam, Adyatrayam, Brahma Rupam, Jagad Rupam Atodvayam. The first 3 belong to Brahman. Oh, then what are we left with? Nama Rupa. Yeah. What is the mood in your life that you take so seriously? Nama Rupa. Just a word and a meaning. And what are wars fought over for? Nama Rupa. And what are the beliefs that people just take with them to the grave and to the next life? Nama Rupa. All those grave beliefs. That's why they are called grave beliefs. Nama Rupa. And what is friendship? Nama Rupa. What is parenting? Nama Rupa. Children? Nama Rupa. Yeah. Not children per se, but the fact that I think I am a parent and that I have children. Those thoughts. Thoughts of parenting, thoughts of children, thoughts of marriage, thoughts of spouse. Nama Rupa, Nama Rupa, Nama Rupa. In fact, the whole Jagat is a series of Nama Rupa. And the question now, the more interesting question, is where do those Nama Rupas reside? Huh? Yeah, they are right here. It's not even they reside outside. You can't say the Nama Rupas reside in a dictionary. They are not in the dictionary. Who put them in the dictionary? Your own brain. Or those of your ancestor, whoever that person was who made the dictionary. So Nama Rupas, don't think they are somewhere in, you have to look in the thesaurus, synonyms, many Namas, many Rupas, antonyms, all these names means Nama, that's all, name. The word name also must have come from Nama only. And so these Nama Rupas, where do they reside? In your own head. So we are now back, after analyzing all the vrittis, everything, you are back to where it all started, your own head. Yeah. This is a heady chapter, Therefore, and so what is going on over here? A lot of interesting things are going on. So that which is Brahman, And that which is Nama Rupa, what is the connection? So if you take away Brahman, away from Nama Rupa, what is left? Nothing. Just some thoughts swirling around in the head. Right? Yeah. But then, if you take away Nama Rupa from Brahman, from this Jagat, so you have Jagat is Brahman plus Nama Rupa. Agreed? Yes. So then you take away Nama Rupa, then what is left? Brahman. So is Brahman sad that the Nama Rupa has gone? No. So Nama Rupa gone, Brahman is Brahman. Brahman plus Nama Rupa, Brahman is still Brahman. When I say Brahman is still Brahman, what do I mean? Infinite, as it is, untouched, self-evident, self-effulgent, not needing another prop to make it come to light. So the Nama Rupas, the word and meaning, or if you want another analogy, the name and form are not going to make any effect, are not going to have any effect on the Nama Rupa, on Brahman. The Nama Rupa does not affect Brahman. But can you say this the other way round? Take away Asti Bhati Priyam, I am happy with just Nama Rupa? No. Nama becomes Nama because of which? That is Brahman. Rupa becomes meaningful because of which? That is Brahman. All names and forms, otherwise will just be a heap of words, really. Even now they are a heap of words. But because there is Brahman in all of them, we can appreciate them, we can worship them, we can find them adorable, we can find them, we are able to interact with them, we are able to understand them, we are able to be one with them. All these interactions are possible because those Nama Rupas are not emptied of Asti Bhati Priyam. The Nama Rupas are not emptied of Sat Chit Ananda, really. So all the Nama Rupas have Sat Chit Ananda, but those Nama Rupas that do not have a subtle body, those that we call, for example, inert, not available for transaction, Jada in Sanskrit, as opposed to Chetana, which is sentient, or those Nama Rupas with a subtle body are called Chetana, including plants and trees, and those Nama Rupas without a subtle body are called Jada. And so those Nama Rupas without a subtle body, in those Nama Rupas only the Sat is present. Why not Chit and Ananda? They are also there, but there is no medium for manifestation. That's all. The subtle body becomes a vehicle for the manifestation of the other two. The subtle body includes the mind, and so if there is no mind, then how is it going to declare its existence, or what the nature of its existence is? Okay? So therefore, in those incarnations which lack a subtle body, like rock, mountain, river, 5 elements, etc., which we call inert, there the Chit is not manifest. That doesn't mean it's not there. Everything is Satchidananda, but it is not manifest. It is latent, it is unmanifest. This is what is told, that there are three definitions from the standpoint of understanding Brahman. One is called Satta. Look at verse 20. Satta. Satta means nothing but Sat, with a feminine noun added, Satta. And then Chitihi, again a feminine noun to go with Satta. Satta and Chitihi. Chitihi is nothing but Chit, not to be confused with Chittam. And then Sukham is Ananta or Ananda. So there are many ways of expressing the same thing. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, one. And then the second one is what? Sat Chit Ananda. And the third way is Satta Chitihi Sukham. The fourth way is Asti Bhati Priyam. Same things. So don't get confused with the change of the words, because they are all trying to say the same thing only. Okay? So Satta Chitihi Sukham Cha Iti Swabhavaha Brahmanaha Trayaha. So Brahmanaha Trayas Swabhavaha Santi. So there are three aspects to Brahman's nature. One is isness. One is existence, isness. And you see, this existence comes along with two other words, because each one qualifies that existence. Each becomes a niyamaka for the other. Niyamaka means a qualifier for the other. So then if you ask what kind of an existence, an abstract existence, an endless existence, because the kind of existence we know is that by the time you finish saying the word existence, it has undergone a change, it has become older, correct? Yeah. Existence is a 3-syllabic word. By the time you say existence, 1 second has passed, 2 seconds have passed, and in those 2 seconds that object, whatever you are holding in your hand, has aged, correct? It has undergone a change. And so that kind of existence alone we see and we are familiar with. We are extremely familiar with existence that is conditioned by time and by space and by being a particular object in a particular time and space. So what is existence conditioned by time? Existence conditioned by time is like when you say, oh, this is a timeless monument. Describing the pyramids in Egypt, it was written, the pyramids of Egypt are a timeless monument in the history of humanity. Timeless means not timeless, correct? Yeah. All we need is some extremists. That's all it is, That's all we need. And it's the same thing that they did to the other timeless monument which was there in the Afghanistan hills. These Bamiyan hill Buddhas, the Buddhists had carved them on the face of the mountain, and they had been there for 1,000 years. And then these people went and defaced the sides of the mountain and destroyed all of that. So that happened to that, which was that also somebody may have called a timeless monument, correct? So the pyramids are timeless monument. So there was a time when the pyramids were not, right? And there may be a time, I hope not, but there may be a time when the pyramids are gone, thanks to all these extremism and intolerance that we have going on in the name of terrorism. So you cannot call it a timeless monument, because you can map a time when the pyramids were not. So the pyramids beginning asti, correct? End chapi asti, even the end is also there. So the asti is a time bound asti, even though for all long ranging things we call them timeless, but they are not really speaking timeless, correct? That's why UNESCO has to step in now. And then there are now all these sacred sites, they cannot be touched, because UNESCO started to get worried that these so-called timeless monuments, UNESCO started to find out, are not really timeless. They are very much in time and then going through the ravages of time. Same thing with Taj Mahal, they say another timeless monument. In fact, they say that the Taj Mahal is built over a Shiva temple, which Shah Jahan, wrested from the hands of the Hindus and then forcibly put his wife's body there, and this is a very big thing. It was called Tejo Mahalaya, that is, and then he changed the name to Taj Mahal. That is something they say. But anyhow, doesn't matter, all those stories. So this Taj Mahal, which is described as a timeless monument, the marble of it is undergoing a lot of changes because of the atmospheric pollution. The government of India has to step in, and then they put some scaffolding, and then they just put all these, coating over the marble slabs and bricks, so that this erosion because of the smog doesn't take place. So what is timeless about it? Either way it's not timeless. Whether it was Shiva temple, then also not timeless. Okay, maybe that was a myth and this is the reality. It is Taj Mahal only, then also it is not timeless, correct? Everything that we say timeless is subject to the ravages of time. So our concept of existence is vitiated by a finiteness is vitiated by the time matrix. Our concept of existence is also vitiated by the space matrix, because when you talk of time, space immediately comes. When you say where are the pyramids, nobody is looking in the Europe map. Okay, pyramids are here. People immediately know this is here. Where are the Himalayas? People are not looking somewhere in Alaska. Immediately they know this is here. Correct? So the space also conspires to make something very fixed. So when we talk of existence here, it is neither fixed for Brahman, it is neither fixed in time nor fixed in space. And that's why the word Ananta here described as Sukham, because we are looking at the human pursuit. We have gone through that as well. So the word Ananta in Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, the Anantam becomes a very important qualifier for this Satyam, because it makes this Satyam limitless existence, truly timeless, truly beyond space and time. So it makes it an all-pervasive existence that is not trapped in time. You see? Because each thing has a threefold, what is that called? Threefold constriction, called Parichheda. Parichheda means limitation, a constriction as it were. Time-wise, we've already seen that. Space-wise, we've seen that too. It's in one place but not in another place. And then we have a unique one to Sanskrit called Vastu Parichheda. Vastu here means object-wise. What is this object-wise limitation? Because if something is manifest in the shape of a flower at this T1 and S1, at this particular space and particular time, it is not also manifest as a mango in the next room in a different time or in the same time. Correct? So it is confined to a particular upadhi, that is called Vastu Parichheda. To a particular body complex, body mind sense complex if applicable, it is confined to a particular name and form. This is called Vastu Parichheda. So that which is free of all these parichhedas, all these these constrictions in terms of time, space and object is Brahman. That which is pure existence. And then the next word also qualifies this existence. What is the next word? Jnanam, or here Chitihi. And what kind of a Chiti it is? What kind of an existence it is? It is a sentient existence. So that existence is nothing but a conscious existence in the most abstract sense. So what do we say it is? Consciousness. So consciousness that exists, existence that is conscious. One and the same. It's so wonderful. So consciousness that exists everywhere at all times, totally manifest. In fact, it's the only thing that is. And here, what is this consciousness? If you ask, it is knowledge. Then we come to the last word, knowledge of what? Knowledge of, because knowledge, jnanam is a transitive verb, correct? It's a transitive verb. What is transitive verb? Go back to the 4th grade. Yeah. Verbs which beg the question what after the verb. They are incomplete. Without an object, they are incomplete. So supposing if I say I sit, you can't say what do you sit? It's a complete sentence. I sit. On what you sit is a different thing. But if I say I know, immediately what is it that you know? I eat, what is it that you eat, So like this, I know means it begs for an object there. What is it that you know? And this is again the problem with the grammar. The grammar always thinks of, the word knowledge as a transitive verb which begs the question, which begs an object of knowledge. The the verb to know has to be qualified by the object of knowledge, which is distinct and separate from the knower. This is our problem, because everything that we know is conditioned by a threefold split: knower, known, knowledge. Seer, seen, sight. You know, everything has got this split. So we, experience the world in a very fragmented way, thereby keeping on seeking Brahman and looking for Brahman and hankering for Brahman, because that wholeness is missed. Because if you are the knower, you cannot also be the known, right? So if you are the known, you cannot be the knower. If you are the process of knowing, then that cancels out all the other two experiences. So that's how the knower's experience of the world is extremely fragmented experience. You pick up little pieces of happiness because of this fragmentation only. And this fragmentation, furthermore, the Upanishad says, is due to self-ignorance. Because this is how the nature of the knowledge is. It will be fragmented. Why? Why will it always be fragmented? It will always be fragmented because of the fact that, you are trying to know things other than yourself. And whatever you know, there will be subject, object, and the process of knowing will always be there. It will be split. That is how everything is understood. But what about when you come to know yourself? When you come to know yourself, there you cannot be the subject and the object at the same time. Because if you are the knower and the known, how is the knower going to know the known if it's the same? That is why we say we need another means of knowledge. So the means of knowledge called this teaching, called the Upanishad, through the pramana, operated by the teacher who can handle the pramana, comes to the rescue. Very good, let it come to the rescue, but how does it come to the rescue? It knocks off the status of the knower by showing that the truth of the knower is non-separate from the known. Is really the known is not separate from the knower. The knower is a superimposition upon that very consciousness which morphs as the known, which morphs into the knower, which morphs as the means of knowing without undergoing any change. This is why the knowledge works. And you are able to see the morphing. After undergoing some unmorphing, you are able to see the morphing. Correct? Without taking recourse to morphine. Yeah, because even if you're on morphine, there is all that oneness only. But this is not morphine. This is morphing. Yeah. So the same Brahman which lends its Sat here, listen carefully, to the known and brings that to light, and lends that same Sat Chit to the knower and brings that to light, and illuminates the pramana, the means of knowing, to bring that to light, is Sat Chit Ananda without undergoing any change, and that is you. Oh, why didn't you tell me before? I told many times before, but how come I didn't understand till now? That is a question you have to answer, not me. So therefore, this is something very important. So that is why the means of knowledge works, because it dismantles, it shakes up the status of the knower as absolute. So I no longer feel I am absolutely the knower at all times. So when I question the status of the knower, then I can see Brahman as an endless reality that illuminates the knower and the known at the same time without being either. Yeah. Known non-separate from Brahman, knower non-separate from Brahman. But Brahman is neither known nor knower. That is how it can morph into either, without, morph into both without being either. And that Brahman is Atma. There is no Brahman other than that which is you. And this is what is called Akhandakara Vritti, what just happened just now. That is what is called Akhandakara Vritti. That Vritti, which is that seed of, that thought seed called Vritti, which is planted in the mind as a result of the operation of the Pramana. That is what it is. Somebody was asking, what is this Akhandakara Vritti? This is what it is. What just happened just now, when you are able to see this, this is Akhandakara Vritti. Alright. So then, this is what the whole thing we have to understand, that in the so-called inert objects, Brahman doesn't think it is inert. The inert object doesn't think it is inert, correct? Only the earth object, what is earth? Opposite of inert. Only the sentient object thinks, the others are inert because they are unable to advertise themselves. So those things that lack a subtle body do not have are unable to manifest, do not have the medium to manifest the Chit and Ananda aspect of Brahman. Alright? So here that is what is pointed out in verse 20. Satta Chitihi Sukham Cha Iti. Then what happens? Swabhavaha, the threefold nature of Brahman has been described. Then he says, Mrit Shiladishu. Shila means stone. Mrit means clay. In clay and stone, etc., in those kinds of situations, what is there? Satta eva vyajyate. Only the Sat aspect is distinguished. Vyajyate, distinguished, is manifest. Na itarat, not the other two, dvayam. The other two, what are the other two? What are the other two? Jnanam. Yeah. The Jnanam and all that, and Jnanam and Ananda are not manifest. This we have seen next time. 21. Satta Chitirdvayam Vyaktam.
Satta Chitirdvayam Vyaktam.
Dhivrittayo Ghora Mudhayo. Shantavrittau Trayam Vyaktam.
Shantavrittau Trayam Vyaktam.
Mishram Brahmethamiritam.
Mishram Brahmethamiritam.
Yeah. So now he slowly goes. Actually there is a big, one would think that there is a big disconnect between 20 and 21. What is he describing in 20? He is describing the three, fold Swabhava, the Swarupa, the nature of Brahman. Alright. And then he is talking about how stones and clay do not have Chit and Ananda. Correct? And then he translates the same to Ghora and Mudha Vritti. And he says, Satta Chitihi. Sat and Chit are both manifest in what? Ghora and Mudha states of the mind. What is Ghora states? Agitation, Mudha, depression, Tamas. So in the Rajasic, in the predominantly Rajasic and Tamasic states of mind, what is happened? What is manifest? Satta and Chitihi. So Sat and Chit are manifest because even the Ghora mind knows it exists, correct? And it is evident, correct? So it is manifest, it knows, and it exists, it knows, and it is able to know itself. So therefore the first two are manifest, but in Shanta Vritti alone, Shanta Vrittau, in the Shanta Vritti alone, Trayam Vyaktam, these three are manifest. Which three? Satta, Chitihi and Sukham. We saw that earlier, but now we are seeing the same thing with a slightly different emphasis. Then if you say, so what if the three are manifest? Well, because now when we talk about limitlessness, we have to, the Upanishad herself translates that to Sukham, to Ananda. Ananda means what? It is important to you. Ananda means happiness. Yeah. If I say limitlessness, nobody smiles. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have to take notes. Okay, I have to find out what is this. As soon as I say Ananda, all 32 come out. Why? Because it pertains to me. Limitless also pertains to you. Yeah, but that's such a vague concept. It is more to sit down and take notes. So that if there is a quiz, I can, write a report or it will come aayega later. But then if you say Sukham, I'm here. What? Where? How? Me? Really? It's a very different, different orientation. Correct? Yeah. So therefore he says that being in the Shanta Vritti, in the Shanta mode, is fantastic. Why? Because all three, you are enjoying Brahman in a complete way. Yeah, Brahman is manifest in a complete way. You know? You become the complete person. Yeah. When in Shanta Vritti, you know. Otherwise you are what? Just as good as the clay and the clod of earth and the you know and the slab of stone. That's what Shila means, a stone slab, you know. Tablet, don't think of your iPad. Literally a stone tablet. So then, you know, I am not saying this. Swami Vidyaranya is saying this. If you are in Ghora and Mudha Vritti, see, this is what makes him great. He doesn't insult anybody. He is extremely polite. And then very politely he juxtaposes these two verses very innocently. First he says that, you know, in the clod of earth and a stone slab, you know, Chit and Ananda are not reflected. But in Shanta Vritti, all three are reflected in Ghora and Mudha Vritti, just like the stone slab. And what's its name? You know, the clod of earth. There's only a partial manifestation of Brahman, not a total manifestation of Brahman. And in fact, he says something else in very tongue-in-cheek. What does he say? He says something else. He says, you know what? Actually, the clod of earth and the stone slab are better off than the Ghora and the Mudha Vritti person. Really? How? Why are they better off? Because the stone slab and the clod of earth do not think I am agitated, I am, you know, depressed. They are free of that. Correct? Whereas the Ghora and Mudha person, with the Chit aspect, that knowledge aspect is manifest. That knowledge, you know, Swabhava, the second Swabhava, the knowledge aspect is manifest in the person with the Ghora and the Mudha Vritti. So they cannot accept that in themselves. So they all the time are fighting against the Ghora Vritti. Even the angry person who says, so what if I am angry? If you call them secretly and say, do you really want to be angry? Do you really want to be agitated? Do you really want to be panicked? What will the answer be? I know, but I don't know how else, so I am just used to this. So it becomes a front. What is the front? They get affronted easily. That is the front. Then the Mudha person, you drag the depressed person out of the bed, from under the bed covers. Somehow prop them against the wall because they are not going to stand up. They are so depressed. And you say, do you really want to be like this? No. I even tried to kill myself 2-3 times, nothing happened, they will say. So, if you are able to, if you can wave a magic wand and make it go away, can we do that? Yes, please help, take this away. So, neither the Ghora Vritti person nor the Mudha Vritti person wants to be in those two particular states, thereby affirming our understanding that Ananda is one's true nature, really. And by going into the Ghora and the Mudha states, what are you doing? What are we doing? We are inhibiting the Ananda. It is called self-sabotage. This is what one does. You know, it's like sawing the limb methodically. The same branch that on which you are sitting, you sit and saw. Then what happens? He saw, you go down. That's what happens. So by being in these two negative states, you are inhibiting your own happiness. And in fact, a clod of earth and a stone slab are better than you because at least they don't have a complex centered on the self. Clay doesn't say, I am just the raw material, pot gets all the glory, nobody looks at me except a Vedanta teacher once in a while only says this is not pot, this is clay. Clay can have its own complexes if it had chit, right? It doesn't have chit, doesn't have the subtle body to express that. Slab of stone also can say, you really should ask me my story. I was first a dinosaur. You see, if you turn me around, the scales of the dinosaur are fossilized in the back. But who cares? Nobody is even looking at me. My story started with a collision 12 billion years ago, this rock will say. In fact, I really rock, but nobody knows me, you know. It doesn't have a complex centered on the self. So the stone and the clod of earth are better than this fellow who is stoned, you know, with depression, and whose brain is full of clods of earth, of anger and agitation. This person is much better. You know, the other person's, the other inert objects are much better off, because this person unfortunately has the chit, and himself, herself being Ananda, will not accept these two states, is constantly rejecting these two states. And so therefore what? In the Shanta Vritti alone, all these three, the Ananda aspect is manifest. We have seen this in detail. But then lest one start thinking that Brahman is dependent on Shanta Vritti, a caveat is given, you know. Yeah, because Shanta Vritti is also dependent on Brahman, not the other way around. Shanta Vritti is like a mirror that is wiped clean, you know, with the Windex of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, you know, with all the, you know, Karma Yoga, which includes the following, you know, ingredients. What are the ingredients in this Windex? In this Windex, the ingredients are Bhakti, Shraddha, and, you know, studies, self-to-self, pursuit of self-knowledge, keeping Ishvara in view, dedicating all actions to Bhagavan, receiving the fruits thereof however they come, developing Shama, Dhamma, etc. These are the ingredients of the Karma Windex, Karma Yoga Windex. Yoga Dex, we can call it. And so, and then you spray the Karma Yoga Windex on the mirror of the mind, and then wipe it clean with Shraddha. Then what happens? Then there you have it, boom, Shanta Vritti. Immediately is there. And then it reflects all the three natures of Brahman. Sukha, Ananda, Chit and Sat, all three are reflected. So basically that is just a medium. The mind is a medium. Don't think the mind is original and then the, you know, the Brahman is the Xerox copy. No, it's the other way around. And so we should not think of it that way. So he introduces a new concept which is interesting and slightly problematic, but which we have to understand. If it's not understood properly, it's problematic. And so we have to see this clearly. So he says that, you know, that the Shanta Vritti in which all three are evident, let us call this Mishra Brahma. Mishra Brahman. Mishra means mixed up Brahman. Yeah. Is Brahman ever mixed up? Only in my head. That is what the answer should be. Brahman is not mixed up. In my head, unfortunately, it's mixed up. But really speaking, Brahman is not mixed up. But here, the new lingo he is introducing, which is there in the classical texts also, in other Vedanta texts we come across. So, Amishra Brahma means non-associated Brahma, the quote-unquote pure Brahma, Sat Chit Ananda. And then Sat Chit Ananda plus Namarupa, associated Brahman or Mishra Brahman. Okay? Okay, now what are we left with? We have to explain one more thing. And you know how it is when we explain any one thing, you have to de-explain all other things in order to explain this one thing. Correct? Yeah. So, this he is going to call this Mishra Brahma, means Brahman as though associated with the thoughts which make up the Shanta Vritti. So, Brahman is as though associated with the thoughts. Not really, we have to add as though. Every place we have to keep adding as though, as though, as though, as though, till you get tired. Can you get tired? Yeah, as though. So, you know, so this is what you have to do. So, you have to keep putting as though, because there is no mixed up Brahman. Only the Jiva is mixed up, not Brahman. So now then the question arises, then what about unmixed up Brahman? Where do I find that? Because this is the human mind, correct? So the reader of this chapter will immediately start wondering, oh, dusra Brahman jo hai, now there are two Brahmans. One is mixed up Brahman. And so if one is mixed up Brahman, what is the second one? Unmixed Brahman, unassociated Brahman. So where should I go? That sounds better. This mixed up one ko chodo, leave this one alone. Let us go straight to the unmixed up one. And then and distill the knowledge from that. This mixed up one is, is causing a lot of mix-ups. So where will I find the unassociated Brahman, is answered in verse 22. Amishram jnana yogabhyam
Amishram jnana yogabhyam
tau cha purvamudiritau
tau cha purvamudiritau
adyedhyaye yoga chinta
adyedhyaye yoga chinta
jnanamadhyayoردvayoh and he answers it very simply. He washes his hand of Amishra Brahma very easily. He says, dear friends, I know now you are wanting to know where is this Amishram Brahma, because I am now talking of Mishram Brahma. Correct? Amishram Brahma, I have already explained, he says. Where have you explained? I have explained in chapter 11 and chapter 12 and chapter 13. So if you want to know about Amishram Brahma, study those 3 chapters. In chapter 11, and we will, see it right now a little bit. Chapter 11, which is the chapter on yoga, I think. There it is explained. Yeah. Chapter 11, which is on Yogananda. There I have explained what is Amishram Brahma. And then in chapter 12, chapter 11 is a very long chapter. And then chapter 12, which is the chapter on Atmananda, on the Ananda connected to the self. I have also explained the difference between the Shanta Vritti, that is the result of hard work on part of the yogi to keep the mind quiet. So I have explained the difference between this mental quiescence and Ananda, that Ananda which is belonging to Brahma. I have explained the difference. So for those who want to know that, you please study those 3 and chapter 12 is that, and chapter 13, one more thing. Chapter 13, which is Vidyananda, I think. No, that is chapter 14. Chapter 13, which is Advaitananda. Chapter 14 is Vidyananda. Advaitananda, that the yoga of non-duality he is talking about. The Ananda of non-duality. There I have already explained this Ananda of knowledge. So Ananda derived from knowledge. Ananda derived from what? Ananda derived from yoga. And Ananda connected to the self. All this I have made you understand in the previous chapters. And there what does he say? There he says the same thing. He gleans things from the Upanishads, especially the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. One particular sentence he explains repeatedly. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. He takes that one. Why? Everything becomes dear to me because for the sake of my own self. Then he expounds the wife loves her husband not for the sake of the husband, but for her own self, for the joy of her own self. Husband loves the wife not for the sake of the wife, but for the own self. Parents love children not for the sake of the children, but for their own happiness. And so the pleased self, to bring out the pleased self, I do all these activities. Correct? So that pleased self is what is called, that pleased self which is there, is what is called Amishra Brahma. Brahman that is not associated with thoughts. That even when in the presence of thoughts, that which doesn't undergo any change, and when the thoughts are not there, that which doesn't undergo any change whatsoever. And we have seen this in the meditations. Chant, silence. Chant, silence. The chant, when you repeat Om Namah Shivaya, does it disturb the silence? No. It arises out of the silence, it is accommodated by the silence, and then it goes back into silence. And then the chant is followed by silence. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. This is how it goes. Om Namah Shivaya. In between there is a gap. That gap is you, right? What else is there in the gap? You. In the chant, what else is there? You. So chant you plus chant, gap only you. So the chanter, Mishra Brahman, the silent person, Amishra Brahma. Do you see that? Yeah, so easy. Chant is like Brahman plus Jagat, and then the silence is like Brahman in Laya without Jagat. Amishra Brahma. Mishra means as though associated. And how did it get this association? By as it were lending its satta, lending its existence to uphold and bring to light all the thoughts. And because Brahman lends its existence to all thoughts, Ghora thought, Moodha thought, Shanta thought, without undergoing any change, all thoughts come to light, right? Yeah. But certain thoughts, like the Shanta thoughts, are much more favored. Why? Because they are more in keeping with Brahman's own nature. That's the difference. So when you chant, there is a thought. What is that thought? Om Namah Shivaya. Is there Brahman in that or not? Yes. In every thought there is a variable and invariable aspect. The variable aspect is the object of thought. Here it could be, for example, if the chanter is saying Om Namah Shivaya, variable, correct? Because another chanter can say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye. You can say that. So the thought, the object of the thought can be different depending upon your Ishta Devata. In this example, the object of the thought is different. What about the subject? The same. What about the content of the thought, the one who projects the thought? The same. So the truth of the thought is the same, Amishra Brahma. That which is projected as the outcome or the object of the thought, it is also Brahman alone. That is, the subject and the object are both Brahman. And Brahman is neither subject nor object. So when you say Brahman is neither subject nor object, we are taking recourse to what is called Swarupa Lakshana, correct? So Swarupa Lakshana means the definition of Brahman's nature, which was described as threefold, which we just explained. So Swarupa Lakshana, when you say Amishra Brahma, non-associated, unassociated, unmixed up. Then when you say Tatastha Lakshana, Yatova imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yasmin prayanti abhisamvishanti. If you say that from which everything has come, that by which all things Sat Chit in this gain their Satness and Chitness through this Brahman alone. And that after their time they collapse into which is Brahman. Then we say Tatastha Lakshana. So when you invoke Brahman in the form of the Tatastha Lakshana, the definition which comes and goes. Remember the example of the crow sitting on the friend's head, house. I almost said head, yeah, but that also works. So remember the crow sitting on the house of the head of the house, I was thinking, yeah. So sitting on the roof of the friend's house. That comes and goes, and it has done its job, it has indicated. So this is what Lakshana means, the indicatory definition of Brahman. And even the word Sat Chit Ananda, they indicate Brahman. That is why we can have 3 in number for that which is nameless, formless. So they indicate Brahman. And since the object that is to be known here, Amishra Brahman, happens to be the subject, the content of the subject, which is self-evident, we don't require words. This is why we cannot have words. This is why it says, Yato vacho nivartante apraapya manasasah anandam brahmano vidwan na vibheti kutaschaneti. From where the words, beat a retreat and come back, their head hanging in shame. Along with the mind, they both return hand in hand, not being able to describe and draw Brahman as an object. It is the very nature of the subject which cannot be objectified, but importantly which need not be objectified, because it is known without a pramana. There is only one thing which is known without a pramana, that is the self. Amazing. You don't need a means of knowledge to know I am. And neither does the Shruti establish the Atma. People make this mistake here, that the Shruti is establishing the Atma. Shruti is not establishing Atma. Shruti is establishing, removing the ignorance associated with what this Atma is not. Atma is self-established. That's why every time we meet, I ask the question, are you here? This is why. To show that it is self-evident. To show that you don't need to be established by any power. Not even Brahman, because you are that Brahman. So now when we talk of Mishra and Amishra Brahman, so one way of coming around this is to see that even at the micro level of the thinker and thought, that which is associated with the thought, with the object of thought or the subject of thought, Mishra Brahman. But then that which is the content of every thought, Amishra Brahman. So when I say Om Namah Shivaya, there are 2 things. There is the notion, the identification of myself as the chanter, correct? With the status of the chanter. And then I am putting out a thought in the form of a chant, Om Namah Shivaya, unto Shiva, the most auspicious one, the truth of my own nature, Namaha, my salutations. 2 things are there now. And then I shut up, right? And then when I shut up, what happens? The I also shuts up. Correct? That I thought is there. I am is there. But I am chanter is gone. Right? So there, and the object of thought is also resolved into the I am. And that I am, just I am, which is not even a witness here, because there is nothing to witness. That I am alone is the Amishra Brahma on the micro level. Then on the macro level, you have the whole Jagat. The entire Jagat is there. And then, so, which has come out of Brahman? Which Brahman, has manifest. And nay, not just manifest, which Brahman has indeed entered. Right? Entered every aspect of the creation. And you can't really, and it is called Mishra Brahma, associated Brahman. Because just like you cannot say, now that I know that the pot is clay, let me remove the clay. You cannot remove the clay. So it's Mishra clay. Yeah, it's associated with pot so much so that in fact it has quote unquote become pot. See, so easy it is to understand. So similarly, the exercise of removing, divesting the Nama Rupa from Brahman, It's a mental, it's a cognitive exercise, not in fact a real exercise, correct? You cannot really remove existence from something. Because why? Simply because existence is non-removable. You know, nowadays when you buy these airline tickets, they say non-refundable. Once that money goes, you cannot get it back. So, Sat is like that. It is non-refundable. You cannot say, I'm going to take it out of this and then repatriate it back to Brahman. First of all, that shows that there is some problem. You know, Mishra Brahman, everybody kind of deflates like a balloon. I want to know pure Brahman. Where are you, oh pure Brahman? You know, I am the impure one. I want to know the pure one. This is bringing back the Jivahood again through the back door. You know, we dismissed the Jiva through the front door and now he is coming through the back. Something has to be done. So therefore, this Mishra Brahman business assumes, and you know, it's very easy to assume that I as the subject or as a pramata, as the knower, can divest existence and then do a kind of a separation surgery, you know. Just like you remove a cancerous tumor from a body. So like that, I am going to operate the Jagat out of Brahman because the Jagat is the tumor and Brahman is my wonderful Brahman without any, you know, problems. And I want to restore Brahman to its original shine, to its original Sat, to its original Chit, to its original Ananda. Who is saying? The tumor is talking. Because if you as the pramata, you are still, you know, in a way the thoughts are all Mishra Brahman alone. So now how you cannot excise this, you know, tumor from Brahman and say I am going to restore Brahman to this swastha, you know, to this well-being because this Jagat has come and spoilt Brahman. You cannot say that because it's an exercise in futility. And why is it an exercise in futility? Consider this, you know. It's an exercise in futility primarily because, you know, you are the one who is seeing two things. You are seeing the body which is Satchit Ananda and then you are seeing the tumor which is the Namarupa Jagat as separate. From the standpoint of Brahman, there is no differentiation. In fact, there is no Jagat. From the standpoint of the wise person, there is no Jagat. What Jagat is there? Shut your eyes for 1 second, what Jagat is there? In sleep, where is the Jagat? No, when I wake up, it is waiting for me, yeah, as though it has nothing better to do. What do you mean there is Jagat? Where is the Jagat? You know, the Srishti is only in your Drishti. This is the truth. Drishti means a vision, cataracted vision. And that's what it is. That's why you see 3 in place of 1, 5 million in place of 1. And that is why in the Guru Stotram, the teacher is described as a surgeon. What kind of surgeon? Ophthalmologist. Yeah, ophthalmologist Ananda. And what does the ophthalmologist Ananda do? Excises the cataract from the vision so that the clarity prevails. And what is this cataract? The cataract of ignorance that has made the whole vision distorted, where you see 100 in place of 1. Ajnana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshuhu unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. My namaskars, my prostrations, repeated prostrations to that Guru, for who, you know, through the ointment, through a surgical ointment called Satchit Ananda, the knowledge of Satchidananda, removes the cataract of this idiot whose vision is blocked by ignorance. Removes the cataract of ignorance for the one who is, you know, afflicted by the vision of samsara. And when that is gone, the vikshepa, the projection can remain, but I don't have to say, you know, out, you clay. You know, the pot is spoiling you. You know, I want the clay in the pure form, Amishra clay. I want the clay very purely to abide. This Namarupa of pot, what are you getting? You're just becoming small. Let's out, you stupid clay. Can you do that? No. You can't do that. Because the doer is Brahman, correct? The truth of the doer is Brahman. The truth of the Jagat is Brahman. And truth of Brahman is Brahman. There is nothing other than Brahman. And in fact, what you are trying to remove is not there. Is virtually non-existent. And I can use the word virtual now, you know. Everything is virtual. This is a virtual class. Talking about everything is virtual, you know. So everything is virtual. Class is virtual. You know, without attending class, you can get Vedanta knowledge. Sitting in some other continent, you know, you can get Vedanta knowledge. Without attending, you know, without going to Gurukulam, you can virtual Gurukulam you can have. Yeah. And so like this, everything is virtual. And so you don't have to remove the tumor, the so-called tumor of the Jagat from Brahman in order to get pure Brahman. Why? Because the Brahman is never sullied by the Jagat. You know? We take everything to be serious. And then, you know, the non-existent becomes the existent. The Adi Shankara says in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Mrigatish Trishnambhasi Snatah Khe Pushpa Shashishekharah Khe Pushpa Shekharah Yati Vandyaputrah Shashashringa Dhanurdharah. This in this book also they have quoted that later on. Here comes someone important. Oh, who is this someone? The son of a woman who is unable to have a child, even through surrogate, you know, unable to have a child. Oh, what is he wearing? This son has just, how is he coming? He has just bathed in the mirage waters from the nearby desert and has adorned his hair with a garland of flowers from the heavens, heavenly celestial flowers. So how do I recognize this fellow? He is carrying on his arm the bow strung made with the horns of the rabbit. Look, greet him. Bring out water to wash his feet. If somebody says that, this is exactly like our charcha of, you know, the Jagat. How the presence of the Jagat has sullied Brahman, as it were, has made it difficult to know. So therefore we have to remove Brahman from the Jagat in order to know. If you remove Brahman and restore it to the original state, if provided you think you can, then you also will not be there. It will take the knower down along with it. I want undifferentiated Brahman. Yeah, you also will become undifferentiated. Then who will be the knower? Correct. Ignorance will also go into a state of demanifestation. It will still be there because all the jivas are cheap, waiting to hatch in the next kalpa. Until 2:15 the class is. Yesterday I thought it was only till 2. Yeah, now today I remember, so don't log out. And so 10 more minutes. So then, you know, you have this is the complex. It's a complex issue because of one's own complexes. What is this pure Brahman? We are saying Jagat is mithya. This pot is totally dependent on clay. No, but I don't like the pot. I want only to be clay. You know? I want there only to be clay. I want to know clay directly, not via pot. What can we do? I want to know Brahman directly, not via the Jagat. Via the Jagat only you have to know. And that Brahman that you know via the Jagat is Ishvara, happens to be Ishvara. And that is where the equation is made. And therefore, please drop the Ishvara allergy, please drop the Amishra Brahma allergy. And really speaking, this is really the best way to know. Which is why the Panchadashi also closes with the chapter on Mishra Brahman rather than Amishra Brahma. Having dispensed with Amishra Brahma earlier, it will close only with this whole thing of seeing Brahman even in the most unsavory of places. That is where the redemption lies. That is where moksha lies. That is where the fearlessness lies. That I think that Ghora Vritti is unsavory. That is where the redemption lies. Thank God I think it's unsavory because it gives me some space. Okay, if that is unsavory, what should I do? Then the Ghora Vritti already becomes an object of my observation. Who is the subject? Satchidananda. Pure or impure? Pure Satchidananda. Plus observer. Oh, but that observer has come. Yeah, if there is no observer, there is no enlightenment either. The observer is easy to drop. Once you understand that which is observed is easy to drop, observer also drops. What is the reason? It's cognitively you drop it. And that's what he is getting ready to say. And so therefore he says, he gives this caveat that those Amishra Brahma, I have talked about Amishram Brahma Jnana Yoga Bhyam in the chapters on Jnana and Yoga 11 to 13. Those in those two, in 11 and 12, in those Purvam Udirita, those two Jnana and Yoga, in these three chapters, these two, what two? Jnana and Yoga have been Udirita means expounded. Adye Adhyaye, in the previous chapters, Yoga Chinta means what? Contemplation in the form of yoga. Yoga Chinta, Jnanam, Adhyaye, Adhyayo Dvayoho. So contemplation and and yoga and have already been described earlier in the other two chapters. And so that is what it is, it is talked about. So we are not talking of the free from the conditioning of the thoughts. We are not talking of that. Because even if you look for samadhi, which is what is that yoga chapter deals with samadhi, the state where no thoughts are there, then what happens? What happens after that? What happens after the state is resolved? Thoughts come back. Then if moksha is equal to Amishra Brahma, where there are no thoughts, then you come back after half an hour, somebody rings the doorbell, the samadhi is broken, you come back. Then you can say, I was having moksha for half an hour. Yeah, for half an hour I enjoyed moksha. Moksha means limitless. How can you enjoy it only for half an hour? That is not moksha then. That is cessation of thoughts. And that is Buddhism in a way. Yeah. Chitta vritti nirodha. That is the definition of yoga. So in the cessation of thoughts, what comes? Shanta vritti comes. That is what it is. Shanti comes. But that Shanti becomes Ashanti. That peace is easily disturbed. And the one that through knowledge alone who knows that regardless of whether it is disturbed or not, I am Brahman alone. Brahman is the one upholding both the peace and the absence thereof. That is a higher knowledge because it's not depending on a state. It is not an experiential state. This is what is being taught here. That Brahman is not something to be experienced because you are experiencing Brahman even through the Ghora Vritti, even through the Mudha Vritti. We saw Sat Chit is always there. You are experiencing Brahman constantly, even the one who is sad. Ananda is upholding the sadness. That is why the person is called Sad Ananda. That should be everyone's name. Ananda is upholding the sadness when you are sad. So really speaking, there is nothing is outside of Brahman. So you cannot have pure Brahman, and those who make that mistake and try to have an experience, a special experience of Brahman, need to be taken to a specialist. That's all it is, to get these thoughts exorcised. That this alone is Brahman and that is not Brahman. Yeah. In India they have that, they bring that big peacock feathers and bop you on the head. You know, if people have unsavory thoughts and, you know, they think that I am somebody else and all these things, they feel like, you know, there is a, what is that? We say bhoot chadha hua hai. Bhoot means some kind of a, bhuta means past, yeah. So some disembodied being has come, you know, and, you know, occupied this body. So then they will call some special people for this purpose. And then they take this quote unquote afflicted person, and then they have this big bunch of peacock feathers and they say mantras and they, you know, and neem leaves and peacock feathers, they just bop you on the head. So like this, you know, the person who thinks that Brahman is only equated with a state of thoughtlessness, you know, needs some exorcism of these very thoughts. Yeah. Thoughtless if you remain, what will happen? The mind will become dull. Really. All the time, okay, I want, then that will itself become another thought. I should have no thoughts, I should have no thoughts, I should have no thoughts. Now that becomes an obsessive compulsive thought, that I should have no thoughts. Then you have to remove that thought. I should have not a thought that I should have not a thought. I should not have a thought that I should not have a thought. I should not have a thought that I should not have a thought that I should not have a thought. Now we are in a merry-go-round of infinite regress, except it's not merry. So therefore what? In and through the thoughts, cognitively I see Brahman as pure as it is, because that which doesn't get sullied, that which doesn't get mixed up, that which doesn't depend on anything is Brahman alone. And this is not the cessation of thoughts. So this is what we have to see, that this is not the conditioning or cessation of thoughts. We have to see this Brahman in and through the manifest universe. So in other words, in and through what we have Ananda. In and through this, you know, Sat Chit Ananda, in and through what we call Maya. Asatta Jadya Dukkhe Dve Maya Rupam Trayam Tvidam Asatta Narashringadau Jadyam Kashthashiladishu. Yeah. So Asatta. So this Brahman has three components of Brahman's nature was described. What were they? We count it. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Okay? Yeah. Now, the three components of the nature of Maya are described. What are they? Asat, Achit, and Dukkha. So Maya is totally opposite. Totally opposite. So what are the three components of Brahman? Sat, Chit, Ananda. What are the three components of the nature of Maya? Asat, Achit, and Anananda. You can say it like that. Or you can say Sat, Chit, Sukha, Asat, Achit, you know, and Dukkha. Or you say Sat, Chit, Ananda, Asat, Achit, Anananda. What to do now? So this Brahman is manifest in the form of this Maya. Along with Maya, it has created. And so we have Sat mixed with Asat, Chit mixed with Achit, and Ananda mixed with Dukkha. And this how to disentangle all this? It's like a noodle factory with all these various things mixed up. How to delineate the two, we will see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadagya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Questions? some question is here. I'm looking for it. Yeah. Spend a few months, get involved with politics, and how I spent a few months in India, and how the government has been very corrupt in the name of being very secular, becomes anti-Vedanta. I get agitated and upset. Can you guide me with the basics of how to do meditation? Certainly. Please write to Harinder and get some meditation tapes. We have more than 7, I think 15 CDs on meditation. And so maybe you can get started with that. Maybe she can even send it to you via Dropbox or something. So get in touch with Harinder. What is your email address? You can write it. You can write to Harinder. That will be good. Do you have Harinder's email address? harinder@uoregon.edu. Right?
Yes.
Ask her and you can find a way to get it. Vedanta 501 today. Yeah. That's right. Any questions here?
Swamiji, so a sangha is important to maintain a nishta
Yeah. Asangatvam.
in order not to be sucked.
Inner space, asanga. Inner asanga. Not that you have to leave the house and home, House you can leave when you don't feel like leaving it. That's how it works. Inner asanga. Observing the thoughts, observing everything, and not getting caught up in that. This will explain later on. (501). Does this mean some kind of washing? Yes. It's not washing, it's the opposite of brainwashing. Yeah. Oh.